Hey home builder, John here, your friendly remote CPA, and we are back inside QuickBooks, and we're going to take a deeper dive into some of the nuances of the integration between QuickBooks and BuilderTrend. So inside QuickBooks, I'm going to go to the new button up in the top left, and this is how you can originate transactions in QuickBooks. And I'm going to go through some of the nuances. So first we have customers, vendors. You probably won't do much with employees, and once in a while you'll use this other column over here. But if you want to create a new customer invoice, also known as an owner invoice, I would actually start with BuilderTrend and create it there, and then check the box to push it into QuickBooks, and it will automatically create an open invoice in QuickBooks. As far as receiving payment, I would do this in QuickBooks instead of BuilderTrend. So when a customer or a homeowner pays you, you can mark the open invoice as paid, and you can match it in the bank feed, and then that paid status will eventually feed into BuilderTrend. Quick note on the sync: things that are originated in BuilderTrend and synced to QuickBooks tend to happen immediately. Things that are originated in QuickBooks and synced to BuilderTrend, they can sometimes take up to 15 minutes. Estimate, I wouldn't use this in QuickBooks. That is going to be much better in BuilderTrend. Credit memo, if you are giving a homeowner any kind of a credit, I would keep that in BuilderTrend so that all of your invoicing can be nice and neat in BuilderTrend. Sales receipt, so in QuickBooks, that would be if someone hands you a check or pays you for something on the spot where there was no invoice created. For homeowner work, I really wouldn't use this because you always want to start with an owner invoice in BuilderTrend. Some of the other ones: refund, delayed credit, delayed charge. You can pretty much ignore these. BuilderTrend can be your source for pretty much everything related to your homeowner customers except receiving payment. Now, moving into vendors, all of these screens, or at least the ones at the top three: expense, check, and bill, those you can originate both from QuickBooks and BuilderTrend. The most important thing that I can tell you here is that you always want to enter these as product and service items. You would not want to use your category field for anything that you want to sync into BuilderTrend. That's just the nature of the beast. It will not sync. So it's so important. Let me dive into the expense screen here. You can enter expenses, and I knew this would happen. So it doesn't actually have items enabled right now. So this is a setting in QuickBooks you need to turn on. So let's go into account and settings. Let's go to expenses, and we don't necessarily, we definitely want to see the items table. That is so important. And we also want to track expenses and items by customer. That will allow things to be booked to the job specifically in BuilderTrend. And if you do cost plus, where you need to bill specific items, you can turn on this, and it will add a nice checkbox that you can later use. But I believe BuilderTrend also has functionality for that. So if we go back to our plus new button and we go to expense, now we have item details here. So we can drop in our ABC plumbing. Be very careful. So QuickBooks added functionality here. When you have a payee, you can choose both a vendor and a customer. But if you're creating a new expense or a new bill or a new check, I highly recommend only choosing things that say vendor. If you start mixing vendors and customers together, you're probably going to have other issues. And the other thing about QuickBooks is they try to guess what account you're paying from. But we almost never do things from customer prepayments. So you're either going to want to use your checking, which is a bank account, or your credit card, which could be another current liability. It is important to fill out all of the fields to the best of your ability. So dates matter. Putting things out of order can cause problems. For example, if you go to the receive payment screen and you choose a date that is before the customer invoice, you could get a nasty account on your P&L called unapplied cash payment income, and it just confuses a lot of people. Especially with expenses, you want to make sure the payment method is correct, because this will play a role in how your 1099s are generated at the end of the year. And I do recommend using the QuickBooks function to generate 1099s, because you can hand pick each and every account that you paid subcontractors from, and you can exclude other accounts that might have only been used for materials, and it will automatically pull out payments made by credit card, because in case you weren't aware, the IRS requires payments made through credit card to be reported on a 1099 from the credit card processor, and they use a specific 1099 called the 1099K, where in most cases you're going to use the 1099 NEC, also known as 1099 NEC, or it stands for non-employee compensation. But what we're really getting at here is we want to be able to book things to specific cost codes. So at the beginning of the job, we're probably going to want to book things to building permits. We're going to drop in our amount and the job. So we'll put a pin in this and we'll be back momentarily. I just want to finish out going through the new button. It is really nice. You can come in here and you can pay all of your bills at once. So you can accumulate all of your bills throughout the week. You can get them entered in QuickBooks or have someone enter them for you. And then you can come into this pay bills function and you can check the box for all of the bills that you're going to pay, and you can do one payment run all at once. If you use an external app such as Bill.com, now known simply as Bill, that integration will automatically mark the bills paid for you, so you won't even have to worry about this. This is most handy if you are hand printing paper checks in your office. This will allow you to get all of those checks in the queue, and you can print directly from QuickBooks and it will record all of the check numbers. It's a nice feature. Purchase order. So this is not going to be the same type of purchase order that you have in BuilderTrend. In fact, I really don't like purchase orders. I find that they just add a lot of extra work and they tend to be somewhat confusing. So if you're paying a subcontractor in multiple payments, say for example, they're taking 3 separate draw payments to complete plumbing on your job, I would actually just go ahead and enter 3 different bills. Even if they have the same bill number, at the end of the bill number, I tend to just put 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and 3 of 3, so you know that you've made all 3 of the draw payments. And as far as dates on those bills, you can choose the approximate dates that you're expecting to hit according to the schedule. You can change the dates later. Just in my humble opinion, purchase orders, both in QuickBooks and BuilderTrend, add a lot of unnecessary work and confusion. And I know BT really wants you to use BuilderTrend, so you can use them successfully, but just make sure you know what you're doing. Vendor credit. So this is a really unique attribute of the integration. So if you're entering a vendor credit that's related to a specific job, for example, you have a back charge, you're not going to want to use this screen in QuickBooks. You're going to want to go into BuilderTrend and actually create a new bill, but enter it with a negative amount. Yes, that's right. You're going to want to create a new bill in BuilderTrend, because that's the only way you can get that credit, that vendor credit, to show up in BuilderTrend, and then it's going to sync into QuickBooks as a vendor credit. So if you enter vendor credits in QuickBooks, they will not factor into your BuilderTrend job, which can be really confusing. Credit card credit, that is like making a credit card payment. That has no impact on BuilderTrend. Printing checks doesn't really have impact on BuilderTrend. Adding a new vendor, if you are doing that, it's best to do that from BuilderTrend and allow BuilderTrend to create the vendor in QuickBooks. So this employees column, probably won't really use it unless you are using QuickBooks Payroll. Then we have bank deposit. You likely will use that, especially if you use the BuilderTrend We Pay online payment function. That's a really specific thing, and you're going to want to use the bank deposit function in order to record those payment processing fees that BuilderTrend charges. Transfer, that's only for balance sheet accounts. It requires a little bit of advanced knowledge just because once you create a transfer, you cannot easily change it back to a bill, expense, or a check. And a transfer does not have a field to record to a specific job or a specific cost code. So this would be for an advanced user, and it's only for transferring things between balance sheet accounts, like if you're using money from your checking account to pay down your credit card, you could record a transfer, but QuickBooks also has this credit card credit screen, which is essentially the same thing. They're just trying to get more into the mindset of the small business user. Journal entry, I almost never recommend recording a journal entry. You really need to know your debits and credits to do this, and it can just cause a lot of problems. Statement, that would be like a customer statement, like if they want to see a running balance of their account. This is probably best generated from QuickBooks or from BuilderTrend. And in fact, you could simply do a print screen of a homeowner's owner invoice history to generate a document like this. Inventory quantity adjustment, most builders don't use that because they really don't keep anything in inventory. Pay down credit card, same thing as this credit card credit function. In fact, maybe they're intending you to use this for refunds that you might get on your credit card. Those can be pretty tricky, also probably for an advanced user, but we just have more of the same screen where QuickBooks is trying to get into your mind as the small business owner. Add product and service, we've talked about that. That would be if you want to add a new cost code. So let's go through some scenarios in your day-to-day routine where you need to, you're monitoring your shared email inbox for your accounting function. This is either done by you or maybe a part-time employee or maybe even an offshore person that you've hired on Upwork. So they're going to monitor the email inbox and say you get a new bill from the plumber. So we're going to go in here and you can enter this both from QuickBooks or BuilderTrend. I find if you don't need the documents in BuilderTrend, the QuickBooks screens are a lot easier in my opinion, especially if you need to make a change to a cost code after the fact. For whatever reason, I have the most difficult time trying to change a cost code in BuilderTrend. I usually have to delete the bill altogether and start over. So we're going to choose our ABC Plumbing test vendor. You can fill all this out if you want. I prefer terms of net 30, and we'll just say bill number 1, test. And here's where it gets really tricky. QuickBooks encourages you to book to a category. So in this case, we would book, you would think that you would book to cost of goods sold. That is not going to get you anything in BuilderTrend. In fact, you can just go ahead and collapse this category details and go down to item details, and then we'll want to find a cost code that's related to plumbing. And we'll choose a really specific amount, 1001, and we'll choose our test customer. I like to add notes in the memo. I love to add notes in the description. It is helpful if you need to do a search for the transaction. And I love, love, love to add a PDF attachment of the bill right here so that if you ever get audited by the IRS and you need to collect your documents, they're right here. This is especially important if you have receipts that are on heat sensitive paper that eventually fades to blank. So instead of saving and scheduling the payment, I'm just going to save and close. And then if we go back over here into BuilderTrend and we go to our budget, and we'll give it a few moments. I'll be right back. Okay, good news. So it took a few moments, but it's here. This is the exact bill that I entered in QuickBooks, and it has made its way into BuilderTrend. Now, here's where I mentioned there's limited data in BuilderTrend. It just pulls up this little screen, And that's pretty much the extent of what we have. Whereas in QuickBooks, you would be able to go into the recent transaction and see an attachment. So let's try the exact same thing, but entering it in from BuilderTrend first. Now, if you are entering all of these things by hand, one by one, there's not too much of a difference whether you enter them in BuilderTrend or QuickBooks. Where the efficiency really comes in is if you can upload things to QuickBooks in bulk and they will all go into BuilderTrend. That's where the real time savings is, and that's why it might be worth it to sacrifice some of this data here just to get your data in so much faster. So we're going to go to Financial, Bills. We'll say Add a Bill, and we'll say Test 02 and just a test. We don't necessarily have to put in a date paid because it's not paid yet. This, really watch out for this miscellaneous. Try not to use it. It just creates headaches down the road. Oh, look. Okay, so yeah, we will add ABC Plumbing. This is a test. We'll put in the invoice date in QuickBooks. Bills are referred to documents you receive from vendors, and invoices are documents that you send to your customers to get paid. BuilderTrend kind of mixes those two terms, so just be careful. We'll give it a date of tomorrow, and then we'll give it a date ever so slightly different from the other bill, just so that we know it's separate. And so cost code, we'll say plumbing partial bill, and then we want to choose a descriptive cost code. We'll do the same one that we picked before, and we'll say labor, and then we'll give it a cost of 1002, just so that we know. Oh, I'm sorry. So unit cost, we'll do 1002, and then that gives us the builder cost here. You can add description, internal notes. We do want to send it to QuickBooks. We don't need to mark it as billable to owner unless we're doing some kind of cost plus. And it is nice because you can add the document right to the transaction. So now we can go ahead and save. And I just really cannot stress the importance of going through all of the fields and making sure that they're filled out properly. So now in BuilderTrend, we have the bill showing up under bills. That's another item of note. If you enter bills in QuickBooks, they will not show up under this section. But I find myself just looking at the budget all the time anyway. So now we have two different rows. We have a bill and a PO here, and then we still have our item from QuickBooks. So when you're evaluating your reports, be careful to look at the total cost column, because it will give you a breakdown of what's been entered in BuilderTrend versus what is pulling in from QuickBooks. And I think they even give you an explanation. I don't care to see where things have been entered from. Yes, it's information that's good. What I really care about is the total cost. So now if I come back over here into QuickBooks and I go to vendors and I go into ABC Plumbing, we have both of our bills. So we have bill number 1, bill number 2, they're both listed here, and it came in from BuilderTrend immediately. When you're entering a lot of them, it's easy to make mistakes, or it's easy to get off track. So as a way to check my work, I come over here to this robust reporting function, and I always run a profit and loss by customer. Yes, profit and loss by customer. So I take a look at this, and okay, so we're looking at this year to date. But since we entered the bill in BuilderTrend with tomorrow's date, we'll just change this to this year. So we pick up all of the costs. And if you have multiple jobs, you'll have a column for each of your jobs. And what you really want to do is make sure your total cost of goods sold, that number 2003, you'll want to make sure it ties to the number in BT. All too often I see differences between BT and QuickBooks, and that's how you know something is amiss with your sync. You might have a cost code mapped to, you might have multiple cost codes mapped to the same product and service, or you might have a cost code that's not mapped at all. But this is how you can tell things are working correctly. So another disadvantage of entering things in BT is, what if you go to Home Depot and you pay for something on your credit card? If you're going to enter this in BT, you're going to have to come in here and enter a new bill, and then that's going to come into your QuickBooks accounts payable. So if I run the accounts, let's see, I'll just search for it. So accounts payable aging summary, and we extend to the end of the year. We have our total is showing as payable, but for something that's paid on a credit card, it really doesn't need to touch AP. You're actually just creating an extra step for yourself, because then you have to go into your bank transactions and either match it to that bill in QuickBooks, which QuickBooks doesn't always give you a good suggestion for a match. So a lot of times I catch people adding things from the bank feed, and then therefore they end up duplicating their expenses, and then we end up with a mess. So that would be a huge downfall. There's no way to really enter a transaction in BT without it feeding through payables, and it just creates an extra step. So if I buy something from Home Depot and I come in here, I can just enter an expense, and since we only have one vendor right now, I'll book it to the same one, but you could theoretically create a new vendor for Home Depot. And then do we have anything for our credit card? I guess not. But a credit card would be some kind of liability, or you can even add one. So we can say it's a credit card, and our Home Depot expense was paid on the credit card. Now, if you were to create a new vendor for Home Depot in QuickBooks, just remember to link it in BT. You're also going to have to create the vendor there. So it is better to create the vendor in BT and feed it into QuickBooks. But without that, if you don't have all of the items linked, it's going to not show up on your budget. So it really is, the whole integration between BT and QuickBooks is still quite manual. But once it's set up correctly, it should sync properly. And now, we'll just say we needed to buy a tarp for lot clearing. We were raking or something, and we bought $12.99. Now, the reason this drawer over here on the right, that's the official term for it, the drawer, it opened, is because QuickBooks is thinking that you might be entering an expense for something that's already sitting in AP. So it gives you the opportunity to add these bills, and hence basically just change this from an expense into a bill payment, also known as a check. But we're not going to do that because this is a totally separate transaction. So I'm going to save and close and wait a few moments for that to come into BT. Okay, so it took about 6 or 7 minutes to come in, but it's here. We have our transaction from QuickBooks, and we have it listed as an expense. We didn't put in a reference number, and we have $12.99 under the cost code of lot clearing. So it made its way in, and It's really nice because you can have the receipt attached here. You can enter things in QuickBooks a lot faster. And before we head on to the next module, I just want to introduce one of my favorite tools, which is called Dext Prepare. It's basically a receipt capture software. They've added more features as time goes on. For example, now they support products and services. So you can have a really nice, clean workflow if you use Dext on your phone when you're out in the field. Say you just purchased that thing at Home Depot, that tarp. You could just open your Dext app, and in just the tap of maybe 2 buttons, you can take a picture of that receipt that will last forever, much longer than that heat-sensitive paper that will fade away to blank. And it goes into your Dext inbox. And Dext actually uses OCR technology. If you're not familiar, it stands for Optimal Character Recognition. And it will read the name of the vendor, the date, the amount, and it will try to guess what you purchased. But you can also choose the items or the product and service in Dext, and it will publish to QuickBooks, and then QuickBooks will eventually feed into BT. So that can save you some time if you do make a lot of trips to the store where you have receipts as opposed to bills that come in from subcontractors. So in this demo, we took a walk through how to enter things in both QuickBooks and BuilderTrend, and we talked about some of the unique attributes of the integration between the two systems. We talked about some differences between an expense, a check, and a bill, whereas in BuilderTrend, really there's only the function for bills. And we also talked about the importance of having your data entry person being able to access both QuickBooks and BuilderTrend so they can do like I did and compare the two systems as they're entering transactions. So with that, thanks for watching, and we'll head on to the next module.